And I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
Well, hello. My name is Sean. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Yes, Kevin is not here, but we've got Tyler and Chris here with me to break down the free agency period that has already happened here. We've got a week since it opened, and lots has happened, including some drama on the Canucks side of things, which we'll get into. But first off, how are you doing, Tyler? It's been a while.
Yes, it has been a while. It feels like months. I can't remember the last time I was on.
A lot has happened.
Yeah, a lot of softball nights conflicting with the podcast in between as well. But good to be with you guys again. Things are all right for us up here in Terrace. Although a little smoke around the area from some wildfires, so we hope for the best in that situation to get resolved.
Yeah, it's we've gotten rid of that here in Calgary, at least for now. I know, Chris, you've dealt with it throughout all your travels as well as in the Okanagan this spring. So hopefully it gets it goes away for you there quickly there, Tyler, and those fires get contained and put out as quickly as possible. Yeah, and speaking of Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm at home right now, and we're in full-blown summer weather here in the Okanagan. Mid-30s is the high of today. So, getting used to the heat.
Yeah, here in Calgary, it's Stampede. So that means we got 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Severe thunderstorm watches and warnings almost every day. And everyone's already too tired to do anything because we're already on day 3 here, and I don't know how people do it for 10 days because I'm already wiped.
Not a spring chicken anymore.
No.
Multiple hangovers in a row are not as tenable as they used to be in the 20s.
Yeah.
So a week ago, we had the opening of free agency. And the Canucks were expected to be a little busy, but not in the heavy side of things, and that's kind of what they did. They signed center Teddy Bluger to a 1-year, $1.9 million contract, as well as Carson Soucy. He is a left shot defenseman who can play both sides, to a 3-year deal at $3.25 million on the cap, as well as signing Ian Cole to a 1-year deal at $3 million on the cap. He is also a left shot defenseman that can play both sides. And as well as Matt Irwin to a 1-year $775K deal to sort of bolster the depth on the blue line, which we were expecting them to do. What did you think of those? At least those big 3 signings for the Canucks there, Tyler?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think the comment is probably what a lot of people feel. It's just a bit of a shock to the system to see the Canucks go conservative relatively with free agency and not try to go after a bigger name and spend a bunch of money on a bigger name. So if that's a sign of things to come as far as how they're going to turn things around, that's good, because even with this new management team that's come in since Jim Benning was replaced, kind of was doing a lot of the same things that was driving fans nuts, right? Refusal to go with a long-term rebuild, and then some of the trades there last year involving Horvat and the first round picks and Ronick and all that. There's a lot of reasons for fans to feel uncomfortable. This should calm people down, and they addressed some areas that needed addressing, including defense, obviously, and some experienced players. So that should help in terms of some leadership and pushing the compete level for the Canucks a little bit. So, they're not very splashy signings, but they should be helpful players, and they're not tied to them, over the long term or for too much money. So that's encouraging, but still, it's hard to look at that and then say, is the team dramatically improved and able to reach the playoffs next year? Hard to say, right? Are they better than Vegas and Edmonton? I mean, no. The Canucks have a long way to go to get to that stature.
But as a counter argument, could they potentially sneak in where Winnipeg or Seattle might drop off? Is kind of where I'm thinking. Like, if they do have a realistic shot at the playoffs, that's likely where it's going to happen.
Yep. Yeah.
I agree with you, Tyler, in the sense that I don't think they're like dramatically better, but I think that the deals that they did make, like you said, were also smart, shorter term deals. Like the fact that both Bluger and Cole are just on 1-year deals kind of gives the Canucks that year-to-year flexibility if they do, I guess, continually do that during this like building to contention sort of window. Because it's definitely been the longer term deals that have hampered the Canucks over the past decade.
Yeah, and when you looked at this free agent class, there wasn't anyone that I felt would have fit long term. Anyone who was sort of had name value was on the older side, and it's not someone that the Canucks were in the position to be offering long term contracts to. And I just don't know if there was anyone that was actually a true fit either. I think the closest there was maybe Ryan O'Reilly, who ended up in Nashville on a pretty decent deal, and that the Canucks were not in a position to offer him that because he was offered. He signed a 4-year deal at $4.5 million, and while the Canucks did sign Susie for 3 years, I think he's also still in his 20s, while Ryan O'Reilly's at 32. So I think you look at that, and I think they understand that they need to be looking at younger players, need to be looking at developing from within, and creating competition for a lot of these younger players as well. So bringing in Teddy Bluger, he may not be your perfect third line center. He is a left shot. He doesn't have the offense that you would ideally want, but there was no one really out there that made sense. I think you need to start developing that. They've got Aturatu, and who will we get a full season down in Abbotsford, I hope, this year. You've got Max Sasson that they signed out of the NCAA last year. I think those two are your best bets for a long-term third-line center option there. And then you got Niels Amon, who can maybe find some more offense this year, because he was pretty solid. He was okay defensively as a fourth-line center, but to be a proper third-line center, he needs to take that next step offensively. And I think there's still an opportunity there for him, and with the Bluger signing, it's not like that third line center is locked up. So what I think the underrated part of the Bluger signing is there's still a door open for someone like a Niels Amon to step up and take that third line center role if he can find the offense.
And that's important that they're actually realistically be a competition, right? If you're so locked in with salary and everybody shows up to camp knowing that the roster's kind of set, is that kind of the reason why last year's training camp and start of the season was poor? I mean, Jim Rutherford even talked about it. We didn't have a good training camp, right? Yes, perhaps a criticism of the coaching at the time, but there's not really real prospects of somebody pushing for a spot and knocking somebody off the opening day roster. That's not the way you want to have things run internally, right?
And as far as positional need too, I think it was also smart for them to focus on defense first, because as far as like promoting internally, it's a lot easier to maybe find that replacement for a third line center, even if it's just a temporary fix internally, as opposed to what they needed to do on the back end was obviously drastic, and they definitely took action this offseason, starting with OEL buyout and then moving on into free agency.
Yeah, and again, both those Ian Cole and Carson Soucy weren't necessarily the right shot defenders that we all know that they still need to find, but they both are players who can play both sides. Ian Cole's got Stanley Cup pedigree, and has been just a good sort of veteran player on the ice. So when you look at that, I think that's a good sort of short-term sort of solution there. But they did a lot of that work earlier on, and unfortunately Ethan Bear with his injury kind of put a damper on that, because had they done this, had Ethan Bear been available, I think they wouldn't have felt the need to sign both those defensemen. I think they would have only gone after one, even with the OEL buyout. But it's you look at what the Canucks have done, and it's still a work in progress. But bringing in Cole McWard and Nikita Hirose at the end of last year is important. They're still being patient and working on developing players like Jet Wu and Jack Rathbone. They drafted Tommy Wielander in the entry draft. They've got Elias Pettersson #2 on the blue line as well as they brought in Philip Johansson, who was an unsigned draft pick. He's a right shot guy, and they brought him over from Sweden at the end of last year. And I think from everything I've sort of read and heard is that they're pretty high on him. I don't know if we'll see him in the NHL this year, but maybe next. He's only 23 at this point, so there's still some room to grow. And then, they've got some good sort of depth there. They don't have the top end, but I feel like they've got good sort of depth from like, say, a 6 through till like 9 on the depth chart with Guillaume Brisebois, Matt Irwin. They brought him in as well. He's a local guy. And then, I said Noah Juleson, Christian Wolanin also. They both re-signed up with the Canucks. Those are good defense depth players, as well as I think they're hoping for a step forward from Jet Wu this year. And then, like I said, Cole McWard and Nikita Hirose came in and showed, especially Hirose, showed pretty good for coming right out of NCAA and a little bit of obscurity.
And also, Brisebois has kind of looked the closest to NHL ready as he has in his career this past year or so. So, just another name to throw in there as far as the defensive depth.
Yeah, the Abbotsford Canucks are going to have a good core of defensemen that are going to be down there this year, and it's going to be good for not only their development, but having that strong defense core on that team is going to help the forwards develop, and it's also going to help with the development of Arthur Seelovs, who I think, despite the fact that Canucks haven't really signed a veteran backup, I think he's going to spend most of his time down in Abbotsford playing, and that's what he should be doing, in my opinion. But they also brought in Zach Sachenko, probably more just as a third goalie there, as well as they've got a guy coming over from Europe, Nikita Tolopilo. Oh, that's a mouthful. That's
pretty good. You really delivered that one confidently.
I can't wait to hear Rick Dhaliwal say that.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be a good one.
So,
you mentioned, go aahead.
I was like, you've got that group of goaltenders, and especially Seelovs and Tolopilo are still in the wheelhouse of development here. It's not about rushing them into the NHL or anything like that, especially Seelovs, who showed well for the Canucks last year. And I get why people are excited, because he's only 22, and goalies usually come in and develop a little slower. I think he still needs at least one more year being the guy for Abbotsford. And I think that's this year. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if he gets spot starts for the Canucks. But I think Spencer Martin's going to be the backup unless they're able to find a goalie to come in and replace him at basically a 7.75 league minimum deal.
Yeah. Well, just Silov's got to give him the best opportunity to carry that momentum forward from the World Championship, the hero for Latvia there.
That's the other reason why people are very excited about him. It's he had such a great World Championship.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be. But I still think he's better off as the AHL starter as opposed to being sort of just the backup and only getting starts here and there.
In regards to depth defensemen, a little bit disappointing to see Kyle Burrows leave the Canucks, signed a 3-year deal with the San Jose Sharks. Good for Kyle, but you popular figure in Vancouver, a BC guy, physical. You can't have everything, I guess, but would have been nice to see him back.
It would have, but I think he was looking for that term that the Canucks weren't quite willing to give, which is understandable. When so we went through all those sort of 5 to 9 that on the depth chart, like the defenseman like 6 to 9, maybe even 10. Plus you've got a lot of those players like Wielander, Pettersson, as well as they've got a Russian prospect playing out of the OHL. That it looks pretty good as well. You don't want to have that someone like a Burrows locked up long term when you've got these options going forwards and you're trying to build from within. And as much as he was a fan favorite for fighting and playing well above his weight class, I think they needed the cap space and the roster spot to go after players like Carson Soucy and Ian Cole. To fill up higher in the lineup was than what Burrows could do.
Yeah, I agree.
Just before we get too much further, this is my first time I've been on since the OEL buyout, so just to address that one quickly. I have to say I am still a little bit surprised they did it now. It makes sense why they did it now in terms of the cap savings and trying to push for the playoffs next year. We don't want to give ownership too much credit because it was a move that, in hindsight, obviously shouldn't have been made in the first place. But the Aquilini's willing to eat that much term and money to pay a guy to go away is still worth noting. That's one they had to swallow their pride on that one and accept defeat. That was a bad deal. So we wish OEL the best wherever. Is he signed somewhere else?
Yeah, he signed with Florida.
Right. So we'll wish him the best with Florida. But just too bad. I mean, I always liked the guy, but he's just not. He's just not. He's a shell of his former self, right?
Yeah, if memory serves, I think it's like a 2-year, 2.25 deal with Florida.
There you go.
Yeah, he lost his legs and just wasn't able to live up to that contract. And in a world where every penny counts against the cap, you can't have. It's hard to be competitive when you have multiple players not performing up to their contract. And the Canucks on that blue line last year had multiple players doing that, which is why they struggled for so long there. I think with the right situation, I still think he's going to be a very valuable defenseman for your team, and especially Florida, who's going to be down Ekblad for a while. They lost Gudas to Anaheim and UFA. I think that'll be a good spot for him, especially because he'll be able to run that first power play for them at least to start before Ekblad gets back. So, or even because I think Montour is also going to miss the start of the season too. Apparently, the Panthers sold their soul and all their body parts to make it to the finals.
As you do.
Yes, as you do. But that's going to be one of the big reasons why I think they went after someone like an Ian Cole is they wanted someone who's been there, done that, knows what it takes, as well as and can be a steadying presence. And I've seen multiple people. I think both Susie and Cole are going to end up in the top 4 to start the season. I think the Canucks do want to start giving Hughes and Ron and Philip Hronek the some good steady defenseman to play with, and not try and carry someone who's a 6, 7, 8 defenseman on most teams and trying to drag them up into the top 4.
So is that most likely like a Myers-Juleson third pairing then?
Breezeball Myers, Willanen Myers,
fill in random depth defenseman with Myers.
see where if Myers is even there. I know Alvin has said he's on the roster, but I could still very well see them making. The way I look at, I've gone through Cap Friendly and their armchair GM mode where you can sort of see where teams are at by moving players up and down. And for me, the Canucks still need to make one significant move here to clear up some cap. I think ideally you want to move one of the wingers. Still looking at probably Garland or Bolivier, I think are the 2 most likely candidates. But I could still see it being Tyler Myers. I think they are very, like I said, I think they're hoping Jet Wu takes a step. They're confident in Noah Juleson on the right side, especially if it's just as a third pair defenseman. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the actual deal that gives the Canucks the cap flexibility that they're going to need, because they need to account for the fact that Tanner Pearson may be ready. I don't know if he will be, but they have to have that in mind going into the season, because
in terms of LTIR budgeting, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because right now, with a full sort of with one spare on forwards and one spare on the blue line, you put Tucker Poolman on long-term injury reserve, because I don't think he's coming back, unfortunately. I think the concussions have ended his career. But sounds like Tanner Pearson might be ready, and you need to have that in your injury. And then with that, they have like less than 20,000 in cap space, based off of who I think will be there.
And if you were talking about a potential Myers deal to do that, Frank Saravalli seems to be fairly adamant that there's this like potential deal in the wings with San Jose, and I'm wondering if that's contingent on if they are able to move Karlsson.
It could be, but I also, I always take a lot of these reports with a grain of salt. Mm-hmm. Especially right now, there's a lot of teams that are going to throw disinformation out there to try and distract from what they actually are trying to do. So
is that the first usage of disinformation on this show? I think that's
probably.
And preferably, let's keep it that way.
Oh, ding!
Well, also, if you look at a lot of what the Canucks have done, and there's some stuff that's come out of absolute nowhere. Everyone's been focused. Like look at the trade deadline. Everyone was focused on JT Miller to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, they make the Hronek deal. So and did anyone have Teddy Blueger as someone that the Canucks would be after?
No.
Looking back, I think we should have.
Yeah.
Because he was on Pittsburgh for a little bit there while Alvin and Rutherford were there.
Yeah, and then they have the history with Ian Cole as well, which that makes me feel better about those signings, because not only did they not overpay, but you feel like they came to Vancouver a little bit because they had a comfort level with management.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to talk about what Alvin was saying in terms of how many players reached out saying, hey, like I have interest with playing with Vancouver. I wonder how many of those are ex-Penguins.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you look at with that, the Myers deal, it could be a contingent on that. I've actually thought about that as well. Just maybe that is what they're waiting for, is figuring out the Karlsson deal, getting Tyler Myers as a veteran defenseman for that blue line
to fill in that slot that Carlson took. Yeah.
Maybe it's quite hilarious to think that Tyler Myers is as a potential Erik Karlsson replacement, but
yeah.
San Jose's in a bit of a rebuild mode, anyways.
Don't expect 100 points out of him.
No. I could see it. Also, like I believe what Saravelli was saying was that the deal was for Kevin Labanc, which just adds more to that winger glut that the Canucks have, which I'm not sure is ideal. But you also his cap hit is 4.5, I believe, or close to that. So the Canucks would save a decent a mil and a bit off, a mil and a half around that off the cap, which would help them based off of what I'm looking at in terms of them having basically no cap room to start the season. And there's ways to finagle it because of the CBA, but it's just I'm still expecting a big move from the Canucks here before I think before camp starts, but at the very least before the regular season starts.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I think this is a good way to transition into. Actually, before we transition to the rest of the NHL. We've got Teddy Bluger picking 53 as his number. Carson Soucy picking number 7 as his number, and then Ian Cole initially picking 28 and now switching to 82. In respect for the late Luc Bourdon. Or do you guys have any thoughts about those number selections?
Well, Soucy, number 7, that's my favorite number, so I'd like that idea. 53. I mean, why would people be making anything of that in regards to Bo Horvat? I don't understand that.
Honestly, I think if anyone, it's more of a now I can. There's the whole hate on Horvat crowd, who are like happy that they've gotten someone else to wear that number now. Even though I don't get it.
I kind of viewed it in the same way as like when Verbata took Kessler 17. Like it's just a change of like who's wearing that, but it gives everyone who has one of those jerseys with the old nameplate a chance to just easily just change the nameplate.
Yes. Yeah. Then Ian Cole changing from 28 to 82. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Classy move from Ian Cole to do that. I guess it's very Canucks that this choice of number would happen, and nobody would seemingly realize that the context there and the past with Luc Bourdon. But I know we amongst ourselves had some good discussion about, is there not an expiry date per se, but when you don't retire a number or like specifically take it out of circulation, at what point do you say, well, that was a long time ago, the number's available again? I don't know.
And I feel like our general consensus with our group chat was like at least in terms of Bourdon, like enough time has transpired that it's not like disrespectful to Luke's legacy or his family if Cole was to wear 28. Yeah. But obviously, like you said, Tyler, once he was made aware of it, it was a classy move by him to still basically respect that and to flip the number to 82.
Yeah. Numbers are numbers to me. But I also know that there's superstitions involved with numbers and for many hockey players, and then you throw in all this with Luc Bourdon. It was classy for me and Cole to do it. There's some interesting discussions about how to do it without taking these numbers out of circulation, or whether you put like their initials within the number at some point, which I love that, because I think you can still very much honor the player without taking his number, taking their number out of circulation and quote unquote unofficially retiring it. But
you can like a little patch at the bottom of one of the numbers or something like that.
Yeah. I know Nate Thompson asked Kevin Bieksa if it was okay to wear number 37 with Winnipeg, in respect to Rick Rippon. So there's also other ways to do it.
And if I recall, Rick never actually wore 37 in Winnipeg. I think he changed his number when he was there.
He never actually played for the Jets.
Yeah, but I think they
But
did
he
announce
was
his
part-
number though.
Yeah, he wasn't. He was part of he was part of the Manitoba Moose at the end of his career, and yeah, so it's a complicated discussion. I think a lot of it is gets overblown on social media, but I think the way Ian Cole handled it shows a lot of maturity and respect towards the situation, and he deserves credit for it.
I just looked it up. Rippon was set to wear number 11 in Winnipeg before he passed. But yes, yeah, like you said, still a classy move as far as just asking for out of respect.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if he hadn't changed, I don't think it would have been some poop storm that would have continued into the regular season. I think eventually some new topic for the fans to complain about would have replaced that one. But I think in the end he did the right thing.
Yeah. All right, and then so I guess I think that's all. Oh, other than the Canucks did re-sign Niels Höglander to a 2-year, $1.1 million cap hit deal.
So apparently this is not like a newscast where we lead with like the fresh news. We'll bury it into segment 3. Yeah.
6:50 morning show. We are not.
Sorry, I don't know if you just mentioned that the terms there, but 2 years, $2.2 million.
Yeah, so 1.1 on the cap for the next 2 years. Höglander is going to be a very interesting player to watch this going into camp, and now he's waiver eligible. He's got the 3 years of pro experience, North American pro experience, to be eligible to be part of waivers. So that's something that the Canucks are going to have to manage if they want to keep him there. And I think that might be why they signed him to the deal that they did, 2 years at 1.1. Maybe try and scare away teams from claiming him and from at that point. So, but he showed well later on in the season in Abbotsford. I think he would have been called up if it wasn't for waiver eligibility issues at the end, because they wanted to keep him waiver exempt as long as possible so that he could go back down and be a part of the Abbotsford Canucks playoffs. So seeing where he fits on this roster is going to be something to watch going into camp. And it's also one of the reasons why I think we will see one of the wingers go, one of Connor Garland or Anthony Beauvillier go, because you've got Höglander, you've got Pud Colson pushing for spots. Phil DiGiuseppe is a Rick Tocchet favorite. So he's going to be looking. Dakota Joshua played really well. Dries and Niels Amon played decent in short stints. And then you also got Jack Stagnica, who's came over, didn't quite find I don't think he quite found his legs. He's someone I'm going to be watching going in to see where he's at come camp and preseason, to see if he can take that next step. Because if he can take that next step, that's going to be huge for the Canucks as well.
Yeah.
Is Stagnica on a one-way deal?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, basically he's either sitting up in the press box or he's in the roster.
Well, it doesn't matter. Like as long as Frankie's willing to pay him $775 to be sitting to be playing in Abbotsford, which I like when you look at some of the contracts that you've got that they signed players like Wolanin and Noah Juleson in. I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, you can still bury them in the minors. You just still have to pay their NHL salary, right?
Yes, he's still on. So we'll see there. But yeah, Höglander is definitely going to be, especially now that he's got this 2-year deal, someone that I think the Canucks are looking to try and keep. But they're they don't quite know where he fits yet.
That was actually another thing I was trying to look up in that press release, was whether it was a one-way or a two-way deal. Like, is it more of a he's like we want him to be part of the Canuck, like the NHL roster, or is it more of a we like as a two-way deal where like they still want him to potentially do some more time developing down in Abbey?
It's a one-way deal, but again, that doesn't really matter. I think I think part of this deal is his RFA status and the fact that he had one good season with NHL like production, pushed him up into this level. And two, if you signing that extra year, I think is time to sway teams away if he does go on waivers. Because it's a 1.1 cap hit. He makes $1 million this year, regardless of where he plays, and then he's got 1.2 salary depending on regardless of where he plays next season in 24-25. So, and then if Hoglander can become a player who can, like, you look at his production in his rookie year where he had 27 points and 13 goals in 56 games. If he can be even around that on that cap hit, that's fantastic for the Canucks, and that's value on. And in a world where you are trying to find value against the cap, that's something that can happen there. But he needs to find his confidence playing at the NHL level again, and he needs to find the confidence of the coach, because Bruce Boudreau was not confident in him, and he still does have sort of chaotic tendencies in his game as well. So
he's good on offense. He still needs to work on his defense.
Oh, and even just decision making, like you look at some of the decisions he made in the playoff series against the Calgary Wranglers, and it was they weren't great. Like, they weren't horrible boneheaded moves like many would make out to be, but he was still making not quite the right decisions, and that's something he needs to clean up. And if he does, I think the ability to come in and put 15 to 20 goals in is not out of the possibility.
Well, let's hope for the best there. Yes, definitely a fresh start here this season, new contract, and working with Rick Tocchet. Maybe he can hit the reset there, but this was really his last opportunity to really define himself as a solid NHL player.
I wouldn't say it's the last opportunity as an NHLer, but definitely as part of the Canucks organization, this is kind of his last opportunity. I don't see, if he can't find it, I could see him being part of a trade. I could see him being waived and claimed by another team if they're willing to take on that extra year. So it's him and Podkolzin are going to be the two players to watch. See if they can push for top 6, top 9 roles this year.
Yep.
Because if that's what the Canucks want, and that's what the Canucks need to long term.
Yeah, if there's any like internal promotion in terms of the roster dynamic changing, it's essentially based off of those two players if they're able to elevate their game or not. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so yeah, we've done a decent amount on the Canucks. We talked a little bit about the lack of a deal for lack of a trade on the Erik Karlsson front, and I wouldn't be surprised if that still happens this summer. I think San Jose wants to. I think Karlsson wants to move on. It's such a complicated deal with the 4 years left on his deal, and the cap hit being $11.5 million. That is in another year where the cap is essentially flat, only going up $1 million from last year to next. I'm still not quite sure where I think he'll end up. I've heard everything from a reunion with Ottawa to a reunion with Brent Burns in Carolina. So, but is there any place you think he'll end up?
I mean, nothing really sticks out to me. Like I've heard the same rumors you have, but yeah, it definitely seems like one of these teams is probably going to have to eat or that the Sharks are probably going to have to eat maybe up to about 30-40% to make this deal happen, though, which is significant.
Yeah, that makes it tough to even do the deal in the first place. You're going to send away a player of his caliber and then eat that much salary, like,
because 30-40%, we're talking in that like $4 or $5 mil range on your cap hit.
Yeah, and they've got dead cap space on just over 2.7 million on Brent Burns retaining on his deal. They've got Martin Jones. They bought him out, so they've got him on the books for the next 4 years. But again, they are also on a bit of a rebuild mode in San Jose. So it shouldn't be, other than maybe the owner not wanting to pay it, which I think I've heard that the owner is pretty hands-on with this deal specifically because of the financial
implications.
So like cap wise, it shouldn't hurt them. They should be looking at getting younger and growing that way. But it's just gonna be complicated because of the financial implications and whether or not the owner wants to actually pay that much for a player not to play, and whether or not they can get the assets that they need for that to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I guess in the West, I think the team that caught my eye most was Nashville, and with the departing of David Poile, you now have Barry Trotz stepping in as GM after being a coach in the league for so long. He's definitely made his stamp on this team already. They bought out Matt Duchene. They traded away Ryan Johansson. They brought in Ryan O'Reilly and Luke Shen as essentially tone setters. That's what those guys are there for. They're to set the tone, to set the work ethic. And yeah, I think what did you guys think of what Nashville did?
Well, in terms of what Tyler was saying in terms of Burrows, like good for Luke. Like that's his biggest contract in probably close to a decade. Forget the numbers related to it, but I think it was like somewhere in that like 3 million 3-year sort of range. And for Luke to get that, he's been on like close to league minimum 1-2 year deals for the past several years. So yeah, happy for him.
Yeah, 2.75 AAV for the 3 years with Shen. There was no way he was going to go back to Toronto with that kind of a contract. There was no way they're going to be able to do that for him. But I would think for the Leafs, it's got to be a little bit disappointing that they couldn't find a way to bring Ryan O'Reilly back. But both, I mean, they're. Can you say anything bad about those two players? Nashville, in some ways can't go wrong with those two guys. You figure a new general manager is going to want to make a splash. So Nashville held the draft. They had the NHL awards in the draft this year as well. So it's kind of like it's the time for that organization to be a bit splashy. So,
and he wasn't able to do a first round trade. So
yeah. There was we have a trade to announce.
Yeah.
And boring first rounds of all time.
And from all the rumors we heard, like Trotz was trying. He wanted to be that big splashy, like first round trade sort of thing that most home teams do. But unfortunately wasn't able to make that happen.
Yeah, they're going to be a very tough
and it held on a Wednesday too. Can somebody explain to me why the draft was scheduled that
way?
So
I actually made this joke on a past episode, but the joke at least was that there was too many bachelorette parties being held on the weekend, so they had to go midweek. But as far as the logistics, I really don't know. I'm not too sure why they actually chose a Wednesday instead of a Friday or Saturday.
Yeah, normally it's a Friday, and the first round's on a Friday, and then it's Saturday for the rest of it. Um, who knows? Like, and we're finally back on sort of close to normal off season too for the first time since 2019.
Yeah.
So with free agency on Canada Day, and then you move on from there. So it's going to be a normal length off season for everyone now. Not just what was it last year? I think it was like middle of July was the.
Yeah, it was like the
agency.
past couple seasons has been transitional to get us back to this point, but now this is like the first back to normal.
Yeah, but back to Nashville. I'm looking at the roster, and like I said, they caught my eye because of the splashes they made with paying Luke Shen 2.75 for 3 years and 4.5 to Ryan O'Reilly for 4 years, as well as Gustav Nyquist just over $3 million for 2 years. So they definitely got some good veterans in there, but they do have some younger players that are ready to step up. Cody Glass, I think they re-signed him to a 2-year, $2.5 million contract. He's sort of found a home there after sort of toiling away in Vegas' system. And then they've got Philip Tomasino, Yakov Trenin, who both had okay seasons last year. So it'd be interesting because I think while they made these splashes, I think they do need to have their younger players step up and sort of carry the load offensively for this team, because they'll have a healthy Philip Forsberg back, but they traded away and bought out their top 2 centers in Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson. So it's time for their kids to step up. And then I guess in the East, we'll go where Luke Shen and Ryan O'Reilly came from, and the Leafs. The Leafs now have a Domi on the team again.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I saw somebody bring up an image of was the closing ceremony for Maple Leaf Gardens after the Leafs played their final game there, and there was Max sitting on Ty's lap. And a reminder for all of us about how old we're getting. Yes, that is cool.
Very much so. So yeah, and Brad Treliving's first off season as GM of the Maple Leafs. He gets Max Domi on a 1-year deal at $3 million. He brought in Tyler Bertuzzi at 5.5 for 1 year. I think both those guys were looking for longer term deals, but couldn't find teams that were willing to go at the cap hits they were looking for, at the terms they're looking for. But I think Domi, if he hits, he'll want to stay there. I think just the family ties with Ty there, as part of the alumni, makes so much sense for him, and he adds that bite, that top end of the lineup bite that I think that the Leafs have missed. I
can just imagine the standing O on that opening, like home opener night, when they announced Max Domi's name.
Yeah, and I mentioned that Nashville brought in O'Reilly and Shen as tone setters. Treliving just brought in disruptors. In terms of, you got Tyler Bertuzzi, Max Domi, and Ryan Reeves, bringing those 3 personalities into that locker room. That is chaos.
It's not sandpaper. That's shit disturbers.
Well, I think it'll achieve the purpose of taking some of the attention away from the star players that are, seemingly at the first sign of a slump or some kind of weaker performance, they're just under fire. Not constantly, but routinely, we could say. So, yeah, having a guy like Ryan Reeves who loves the camera and loves the spotlight to take attention away from those guys. I mean, maybe that's what Brad's kind of going for. It might be helpful for them. I don't know. Can they help on the ice, though, is the question long term. I mean, Reeves is what he is.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was on the 650 morning show or if it was 32 Thoughts or where I heard it, but just basically that Treliving is trying to change the identity of the Leafs from a core four and the rest to try and make it more of a like cohesive team, like a full roster, as opposed to just the elites and then everyone else.
Yeah, and even in that core four, you've got John Tavares, whose game has dropped off. He's no longer he was never the fleetest of foot player, and that's slowly going away. So it's more really the core
amount of injuries he's had
three.
over the past couple seasons too didn't help.
Yeah, and it's more the core three up the front, and even then, they still have Ilya Samsonov to sign to a new deal, and they've got they need to clear cap space. According to Cap Friendly, they're currently almost $9 million over the cap.
And even if they used all their LTIR, they're still 3.2 over the cap.
Yeah. Even after putting Jake Muzzin on LTIR, which unfortunately I think his career is done. They're still over the cap, so they still have something to do with. And I think one of the big question there is what are they going to do with Matt Murray? Because he's just under 4.7 on the cap. Do they buy him out? Can they put him on LTIR? Is that something that they can do? So, because if they buy him out, they actually only save 2 2/3 mil, so 2.66 on the cap. So that doesn't even do enough to get them under the cap, let alone allow them to sign Ilya Samsonov to a deal as well. So there's something else coming down the pipeline there for the Leafs in terms of cap, needing to find room cap space there, because they also signed John Klingberg to a 1-year $4.15 million deal. I'm assuming he's there to run the power play because what else would you bring John Klingberg in to do? Like he is a right shot defenseman, so they've got Timothy Liljegren and Connor Timmins as your two natural right shot, right side defensemen. Then you've got TJ Brody, Morgan Riley, Jake McCabe, and Mark Giordano, who are all left shot defensemen. So and that cap move is going to have to be significant. And
I was saying off the air that I wonder if there's like a Nylander potential deal in the works, because that's a significant amount of money that they need to move to get back cap compliant by the start of the new season. Yep.
Yeah, he's the one I keep looking at, and because I think that they can still get he's a winger. He's a late 20s winger on a decent deal, like decent cap hit deal. So in today's market, that's not going to fetch you much. That would be a little bit of a tie into the Canucks as well. Like, I don't expect much in return for the Canucks to move one of their wingers, and I think Nylander is going to get a little bit more. Is going to get more than what the Canucks can get for who they're looking to move, but it's still not going to be a haul. Being a winger, I know he can play center, but he's not. He's better suited for the wing, I believe.
And with how much money Toronto would need to move, it makes you really wonder, like, how close to a like pure cap dump it might end up being. Like, is it going to be like a Max Pacioretty from Vegas to Carolina sort of deal?
That would be, if that's what they have to do, that's what they have to do. But that's going to be a tough bullet for Brad Treliving to dodge early in his tenure as the Toronto Maple Leafs GM.
For sure, but after that shopping spree he just went on, you have to answer the call.
Yes, that's very true. Tyler, do you have any more thoughts on the Leafs?
Just in regards to them, yeah, I just wonder how short a leash Sheldon Keefe will be on now that the current manager is not the guy that hired him. I, you know, I don't know how the average Leaf fan feels, but and it might have been a little harsh to be getting rid of the head coach after they got a little further in the playoffs, but I don't know. I'm not particularly inspired by Sheldon Keefe's work.
Yeah, I felt like he got out coached in the playoffs and just got so focused on just doing exactly the same thing over and over and not actually trying to change up the systems and strategies.
Mhm.
So I think that if he's going to stick around, he's got to change that mentality and look at ways to not let that happen, and then be the person that's doing the out coaching instead of being the one who's being out coached.
Yeah, as far as how their offseason's gone, I think a lot of people were kind of surprised at the fact that it was Dubas leaving first and not one of the core four or Keefe. Because I think as far as how rumors were going, everyone was expecting it to be either one of the core four players or the coach, not the GM.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then Shanahan got the inkling and moved on from Dubas quickly. So it's it'll be that they're a team. I think we talked about it going into the playoffs, and even more so now, more on the ice than off the ice now. I think if the Leafs don't go out and are competing for the division and looking like they can make a long cup run, playoff run, I could see a bit of a blow it up mentality from Brad Treliving there, if he's allowed to do that. Because we talk about managing up a lot on this podcast with the Canucks, but I think that was something that he struggled with when he was with the Flames, and that's something that he's going to have to work with in that structure with Shanahan and MLSE.
And actually, speaking of Leafs ownership, there's even been rumblings that element of the balance of power is changing there. Like Tannenbaum, I think, divested a certain percentage.
Yep.
And then apparently, I'm not sure how true this is, but I've also heard rumblings that even the two telecom companies are wanting to potentially change up that percentage structure of ownership.
I could see it. There's a lot of with the way the Raptors are going, they've got TFC part of that as well. That's a big company worth a lot of money, and when there's going to be jockeying over who has more control of everything.
And especially with Tannenbaum getting older and older, I feel like there's going to be a change up sometime soon. It's just a matter, I guess, of when, not if.
Yeah, just with Bell and Rogers, I guess. I mean, I don't know the minutia of their arrangement with Tannenbaum and his Kilmer Sports Company, but I think they have some right to purchase any shares that he might want to put up for sale. So I guess we'll see in due course what ends up happening there. But I mean, good for Larry. The at his age and where the value of the enterprise is at, it makes sense probably now to sell.
Yeah. And then going back to the West, so there's another team I think we need to talk about, and that's it. And they're in the Pacific Division. That's the LA Kings. They're making moves. They just re-signed Nancy Kopitar to another 2-year deal at $7 million. That'll kick in not this upcoming season, but the season after. But they also acquired Pierre-Luc Dubois and then signed him in a sign and trade and got him locked up long term at an $8.5 million cap hit, which is a bit steep for what he brings offensively, at least up to this point. But he might be he's put up 4 20-goal seasons in his career, and the other one was an 18. So I think you look at that and I go, I think that's a good ad. I still think they need to find some play. They need to have players their younger players step up. If they're going to challenge Vegas, if they're going to challenge Edmonton in the Pacific Division properly, they need players like Quentin Byfield, Arthur Kaliev to step up front. They brought back Trevor Lewis, so yeah, he's a good fourth liner for them. They got Gavrikov signed. They still need to figure out what they're doing in net. I don't think the trio of Phoenix Copley, Cam Talbot, and David Rittich is going to get it done for them. So
I'm on their cap friendly. I'm not even seeing Rittich being mentioned anywhere right now.
he's there. He's right under Cam Talbot.
Or I guess I'm looking at depth charts, so maybe that's why.
Yeah. So that's the biggest question there for LA, and that's like we talk about bringing it back to the Canucks. As good as the Kings are up front, that goaltending situation leaves a lot to be desired, and that could be a spot that if the Canucks get it all right with their mix and their systems, they might be able to challenge. If they're able to challenge any one of the top three of those in the Pacific Division, it'd be LA.
Yeah.
But that's also if the Canucks get it all right.
And there's just so many areas in which the Canucks need to prove it to the fans at this point. It's hard to be optimistic. They don't have to be, down on their chances, but let's see something here.
Exactly, and that's kind of where I'm at. I wish we had gotten to this before we got into the rest of the NHL, but my sort of expectations for the Canucks are now just prove it to me. I've been sort of cautiously optimistic, and then getting sort of bummed out with their starts the last couple of years.
Soul crushing start to the season. Yeah.
And so now I'm just like, okay, just at this point, you've got Petey, you've got Hughes, you expect to take the next step. You've got Kuzmenko, who's got some chemistry with Petey. Can you get some, but you've got so many other questions. And if they're able to get off to a decent start, then maybe the cautiously optimistic side of me is going to come back out. But at this point, it's a wait and see and prove it to me before I even think about getting my hopes up even remotely.
Yeah, let's see where we are in the standings by December 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then is there any other teams that you want to talk about here?
I mean, Edmonton had to send out both Yamamoto and Kostin on a pure salary dump.
Yeah, I wonder how many Oilers fans would be disappointed to see Yamamoto go. I'd probably not too many. Kostin was, an affordable, helpful player there.
It sounded like he wasn't going to sign there, though. It sounded like he was willing to go back to Russia on a deal that made more sense back to the KHL. Yeah. But now they ended up signing in Detroit, and then Yamamoto got bought out and is now back in his home state of Washington with the Seattle Kraken. Yeah, the Oilers, I think they brought in Connor Brown on a very bonus-laden contract because of his injury issues in the past. They're going to need one or both of him and Dylan Holloway to step up and become top six level wingers for them if they're going to take that next step. Everything I've heard is that how they losing to Vegas was a very bitter pill to swallow for them. I think the season before when they lost to the Avs, it was kind of this like we lost to the team of destiny type deal, but they felt that they had all the pieces this year, and they felt that they could have gone farther. So I'll be watching to see what they do going into next season, because I think you've got 2 more years left on Leon Draisaitl's deal, and then after that, I think it starts to what this team looks like will start to change.
Yep.
because that Draisaitl's next deal is going to be astronomical. Because he's making 8.5, and that's a steal.
Yep.
So like he's going to be up by where Connor McDavid's current contract is, and that's in 2 years. We're looking at a probably $6 to $8 million cap.
We're talking McKinnon level
Any
inflation here.
other players?
Yeah. So I think they've got 1 or 2 more years to figure out whether or not they can do it with this group.
It's fascinating to imagine what the Oilers potentially could look like in 4 years from now. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got Craig Conroy with the Flames. Still hasn't made any traded away Tyler Toffoli.
Insert crickets sound here.
And then just crickets since essentially not being able to bring back Matthew Phillips as he joins his AHL coach with Mitch Love in Washington. And then they just signed a bunch of AHLers essentially. Even Jordan Osterley is more of a borderline NHLer at this point in his career. So but I think it's still hinging on Lindholm. What happens with Lindholm is the pivot on whether or not the Flames are going to be going competitive or rebuild.
And yeah, it makes you wonder how much pressure is being put on Lindholm to basically make that decision yesterday.
I'm surprised that they've let it go this far, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Yeah. Okay. Take your time, make the right deal. But yeah, it feels like the Flames organization is being held hostage by this decision.
Yet again.
Because I think it's also holding up the Hannafin deal, because Hannafin wants out. And whether or not the Flames are going for it or they're rebuilding is huge in terms of what they're looking to do with that Hannafin deal. Are they looking for futures? Are they looking to try and make a hockey deal? It makes no sense to me that why this is being dragged out this long.
There's got to be some issue that hasn't been made public, I guess, that would be holding it up.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
I know Conroy needs to get this right, but he also needs to. The longer this goes, the worse it looks on him and the Flames, in my opinion.
So are you? I mean, if you've made a couple of comments now about Conroy, are you a little? Are you lacking some faith that he's qualified for this job?
No. I just think it's he's in a tough position. I don't envy him, especially with the whole if he came in and everyone was on board. Yeah. It'd be easier, right? And then he probably would have made he'd been able to make some moves here. But he's being held hostage by this Lindholm decision. And unless Lindholm has made this decision and they've found a way to keep it quiet and they're just working away at a deal, it just feels like he's being held hostage, and it's a very tough position to be in. But you got to find a way to, for lack of a better term, shit or get off the pot. Yeah. It's time to make moves here.
And at least to Conroy's benefit, being a fan favorite during his playing career, I think maybe buys him a little bit of extra time in terms of being able to make this move. Whereas had it been someone else that maybe the fan base didn't already, favor or have history with or what have you, maybe there would be more rumblings of what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, either that or if say Hannafin and Lindholm were still on the roster going into camp, I think they need to they need to get ahead of the story and start dictating what the narratives are instead of letting imaginations run wild.
Yeah, letting the absence grow louder, or the silence. Grow louder.
Yeah,
but it's they. With the cap only going up $1 million, it's really hurt a lot of the ability to make trades. And even with the free agency class not being that strong, it's still very tough. The Flames currently cap only got 9 forwards signed, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to see Peltier and Coronado start up with the Flames this year. So that's 11. They still need to find one more, and probably Walker Duehr as well. So they still need to find like a couple extra skaters, but up front. And then they've got 7 defensemen signed, but one of them wants out. So it's crazy that like usually around this time with the NHL, you feel like, okay, most of the off-season work is done. There'll be some arbitration stuff. There'll be maybe the odd RFA that we're looking at, but it seems like there's more and more. There's at least a handful of teams that still feel like there's a move to be had here. You've got DeBrincat in Ottawa, Carlson in San Jose. You've got the Flames with Lindholm and Hanifin. The Canucks need to make a move to clear space. The Leafs need to make a move to clear space. So it's just, you got a handful of teams right there that just looking at it and going, something. We're going to get a couple big moves here soon, or at least throughout the summer.
But I feel like everyone was also expecting that last offseason, especially like in terms of the Canucks, and just nothing ever materialized. So I wonder, like everyone's like saying that this trade market window is going to open up, but to quote Alvin's, like, what trade market?
Well, I think that's part of it. Is everyone's holding their cards close to their chest, trying not to show their hand. And I wonder if it all it takes is one move. To break open the floodgates.
That's what I was thinking too. You just need that one significant name to change places, and suddenly now it's a whole puzzle piece thing, right? In a tight salary cap trade market out there. So
it really makes you wonder if this is all like this entire like league wide trade market is being held up with this potential Carlson deal. Then
I think that's very valid. Yep.
DeBrincat as well, I think. On the blue line, yeah, probably Carlson, but also I think the Alex DeBrincat trade.
DeBrincat's definitely number 2 in that list, but I feel like Carlson's definitely like the biggest name and biggest number to drop.
Yeah, but I think in terms of who's like actually legitimately interested is a very small group of teams, just like less than a handful for Carlson. With DeBrincat, I think you'd have a bigger,
at least a dozen.
Yeah. So, is there anything else?
No, I don't think so. Just other than it's nice to see the schedule out already, and people will be able to circle dates that they find marquee. There's one quirky one where I think all 32 teams are playing on some Saturday, and they've got the times all staggered. I haven't looked at that one in great depth, but that'll be interesting.
Sit down and just watch hockey all day.
Yeah, and I believe we have an Oilers Flames Heritage Classic in the schedule. That should be a lot of fun. The off season is going to fly by in a hurry, guys.
I sure hope so.
Speaking of the off season, we are getting into the summer. I think most of us, Kevin's going to keep trying to produce content on here for as much as he can over the summer. I think we'll probably, the rest of us will probably pop in here and there, but we're going to try and take a break here for, as we said, first sort of regular off season since 2019. Time to decompress, reset, maybe become less jaded about hockey, the Canucks, and everything.
Yep.
I know.
Go outside and touch some grass.
I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin does something on the new women's league that's going to be starting up next winter.
Yeah.
With the offshoot
yes,
touring league. I can't remember what their acronym was. Buying out the I can't remember what it was. They change it all the time.
There was was it PWF and PWH?
PWF or something? PHF.
PHF.
That's what it was.
Hockey
Yes.
Federation. That's it. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, that merger happening. We've got, so that'll be fun to watch, see what happens. So stay tuned for the content that we will be putting out. But as it is summer, It will be a little more infrequent, even though we have been kind of infrequent of late anyways. But until we see you next time, have a great summer. Go out, enjoy the good weather when you have it. And we will look forward to the fall, starting with Young Stars, where I'm working on getting out there for that.
It would be
I
awesome.
mean,
to
if
go.
our Okanagan correspondent's not over
Yes.
all over that one, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean, hey, anyone who wants to come visit during September, I am all for. Well, obviously, I only have limited couch space, but I'm all for hosting people who want to come visit.
Yep. So, all right, we'll talk to you later. How do we follow everyone?
I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE.
I'm at Schneitz on most social media.
You can follow me on Twitter at BeardyConnect03. Kevin is on, I think, all social media at KEVOLE. Who knows? You might have a new social media come the fall.
I mean, I'm already on Threads, so I'm not sure about you guys.
Yeah.
We'll be swooping instead of tweeting. Yes, as of right now, you can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch at Shifts and Pucks.
Yes.
And as I said, have a great summer. We will see you around and look forward to diving back into things in the fall. So bye for now.